Hello, I'm Nathan Leahy and welcome to Next Week in Gaming. So first up this week we have a rather decent Humble Weekly bundle which is by Focus Home Interactive, and this is making a slight change to the normal Humble Bundle features. We still have the three different tiers, the lower tier, the green tier and the blue tier that cost slightly more, and there's a lot of really good games in this bundle. In Focus Home Interactive are those people that I think I compare them most to Risen, the game, because the core features of the game are actually pretty good, the general concept of the game is pretty good, but it's just a little bit rough around the edges, and for the most part people can forgive that. And Focus Home Interactive tend to publish those sorts of games, good core concepts, slightly rough around the edges, done on a budget. So they are sort of like a publisher for independent titles with slightly more impressive graphics, like Cities XL, which is included in the bundle. The most interesting thing about this Humble Weekly bundle this time is that if you pay the final fourth tier, which is a slightly new thing, you get the whole Focus Home Interactive everything, just the whole selection pack, which includes Of Orcs and Men, Blood Bowl, Cities XXL, Cities XL Platinum, what's that game called? Contrast as well. So it is a pretty good value bundle, and it has a lot of good games. Styxian was one of the first games I ever reviewed officially, and they just make relatively good games that if you can forgive the budgety development of them, they're actually pretty good titles. Releasing on Tuesday the 2nd of February is a game that's a little bit of a throwback to that old 1999 title Roll Cage. It's by Well Caged Element Inc. And this is basically a battle racer game that involves those cars. I don't know if you remember them, where they were basically quite flat cars, two big chunky wheels front and back, and you could sort of hit walls and they would flip over and just carry on driving and have different colours on each side. So this is basically a game developed around that game and those toys that we used to play with as kids. And it's a battle racer, so you can pick up tons of different pickups and shoot each other. The gameplay is similar to that of not only Roll Cage but also Trackmania, in the way that you're sort of driving around these absolutely crazy tracks and sort of doing spins and flips and rotations and all sorts of stuff. And it's really fast paced. They say it goes up to 700 miles per hour, but that's probably not relative to anything in particular. And there's a ton of different levels, planets, day and night, so it gives you a nice different vast array. I know a lot of games just seem to go for that token sort of random desert level that they drive everything on, like Victor 36, everything was done in the desert. But it looks pretty cool. It is early access though, so it's worth noting that down. Although I'm not a fan of early access titles, but I've put it on my wish list already, waiting for it to fully release, just because battle racers look cool, and it does look really fast paced, and it has local split screen and all of that usual stuff we like. So I can see myself jumping on the Steam machine and installing this later. Releasing on Friday the 5th of February is Firaxis' new XCOM 2 game. This is published by 2K Games as usual, and it's basically going to be the same sort of stuff we saw in the original XCOM title back in 2000, and goodness me, I can't even remember. But everybody pretty much liked it, and those who didn't like it were never going to like it in the first place, to be perfectly honest. It was pretty good. The only things I couldn't really get my head around was the fact that the aliens used to take a turn as soon as you actually discovered them, and that annoyed me a bit, but apparently it has been solved in a weird sort of way. But this game is going to feature much of the same stuff, except instead of building a base, you're going to be using the Avenger, which is like an ex-alien transport ship. Instead of building a building, you'll be floating around. And also you're basically going to be able to choose where you decide to strike and where you decide to drop your soldiers, as opposed to going to that satellite map and going, oh, this country needs me to do something, choose between these two things and get shafted and get rewarded from these two. So overall, it's going to be a very similar experience, but they've just added tons more content. There's more upgrades, there's 5 different soldier classes, there's loads of different enemy types, including those weird snake things. Everything just looks bigger, more shinier, but at its core, it's that same game that we all love. So I didn't manage to get a review key for this title, but I'll probably pick it up anyway because XCOM's fantastic, and they've got the Long War modders on board as well, so there will be mod support and probably some sort of mode reminiscent of the Long War mod that we saw for Enemy Unknown. So yeah, XCOM title, what's not to love? Also releasing on Friday the 5th of February is the 4th installment of the Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm game. This is by CyberConnect 2 and published by Bandai Namco. This is basically just going to be the same as every other Ultimate Ninja Storm game, so much so that there isn't really much of a write-up about it. There's like 3 sentences of blah 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 blah, basically politics speak. But this game is quite a challenging but also equally rewarding title. I played one of them briefly, I think it was the second one, and was mystified as my opponent blocked and turned into a piece of wood. but if you've watched the series, you'll probably understand half of that. But it is a slightly more complex fighter, so whereas Street Fighter and Tekken and Mortal Kombat are just side-to-side scrollers with the jumping, this one is fully 3D, and that goes for attacks and movement as well, so they go all over the place. So it's quite difficult to keep sort of track of everything, but once I think people who've played that game for ages just know what it feels like, but it is a reasonably cool game. Cel-shaded graphics. It's just, I hope that the £40 $50 price is worth it, because it looks like it's the same game, so hopefully there's a hell of a lot more content to justify that price. Our next review will be published on Thursday the 4th of February, and this is going to be of Freshly Squeezed Defunct. This is a game I mentioned a couple of months ago, probably in November actually, where you play a robot that's sort of crash landed on post-human Earth, and you're sort of driving around trying to get back to your main ship. This is a game very similar to sort of Tribes Ascend in terms of movement. It hasn't got any of that combat or anything, in that you're sort of skiing about and using gravity to make these massive arching jumps, and you go across 11 different levels that all look quite varied. It's quite a sort of blocky graphical style, and it just looks good. It looks nice and fast paced, quite complex. It's a budget title, so it's not overly long but not overly expensive either, and altogether I was just really looking forward to picking it up. Also, I was asked to do the Baba Yaga DLC review by Crystal Dynamics, so we'll probably post that sometime next week too, but without a performance analysis, because we already have that from our original review of Rise of the Tomb Raider. So yeah, look out for those two next week. That's it from us at Next Power Up. Join us next week on Thursday for our weekly review, and of course next week on Saturday for our next Week in Gaming episode. Let us know in the comments section below what you guys have been playing. As usual, I have just been absolutely blitzing through Tomb Raider and Bombshell this last week, so I didn't really get a chance to play much. Went and popped down to Friday Night Magic yesterday actually, and didn't do too badly, got 2 for 2, but opened a rather nice card from the boosters. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you guys next week.